Welcome back. This section of videos is about what to do if you have not been able to prevent yourself from being abusive. So all of what we've talked about in the prior videos has really had one focus, and that is don't get there, right? Don't get to the behavior that you are wanting to be gone from your life. But you know what? We're pragmatists. We want to address what's real. And in the journey of learning to stop being abusive, we need to address what happens when you have had an outburst, when you have had a moment of extreme anger. You might call it a meltdown, or just that extreme acute reaction that can sometimes occur. So that's really what we're focusing on in this particular video. I like to start out, because we're trying to be very personal and help you to understand that you're not alone. I like to start out by having us share a little bit about this. And so when we're in the middle of an outburst, what is it like for us? So you can, maybe have a point of relating. Everyone's going to be different, but I'm curious whether you would be willing to describe, Karen, a time when you're like in the middle of something and you're like, oh, I got here. I wish I hadn't got here, but I am here. And what that was like for you.
Sure. One of my worst scenarios is being stuck in a car with someone and being really, really angry. In those moments, I just feel like I want to throw myself out the door. I want to explode. There's no escape. And that's, I think, maybe the core feeling is being like wanting to explode and escape. In those situations. I even know of a friend who, in the middle of a conflict, threw himself out the window of like a 3-story building. So I just think that's like that's the feeling. Like when he told me that, I just understood completely where he was at in that moment.
Yeah, and so this sense of being at the end of your rope, like just, it's done. It's so vivid the way you describe it, and so helpful to think about it that way, I think, because really when we're mid-outburst, when we are in the outburst moment, what is happening is we've run out of capacity. Our capacity to respond in a more regulated way is gone. We've run out. It's like you go to the pantry, like the cupboard in your kitchen, and there's nothing there. You have no tools, you have no energy, you have forgotten how to regulate. For me, those words you used, Karen, were so on point, like feeling of explosion, just like an out of control feeling, and like being powerless, like almost like being a puppet on string, like being moved around rather than me moving myself around. I was at the whim of the situation. So whatever it feels like to you when you're in the middle of an outburst like this, I think it's very simple, and it might feel annoying actually to hear us say this, but there's really only one thing that helps in that moment. Try to really relax into hearing that there's only one thing you can do, and that is to remove yourself, to interrupt yourself, somehow pierce into this moment of feeling like you're going to explode. Let something, and we're going to talk about how, interrupt you. That's really the only thing that's possible. Removing yourself, and by doing that, interrupting the outburst. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Remove yourself, interrupt yourself point?
Yeah, I do. Just that it was a real wake-up call for me in a relationship program. when I learned about the stress response and how after a certain point your system gets flooded. This word really resonated for me. It just made complete sense. I felt in that word a resonance with the moments where I knew I had just gone way beyond my capacity. And the moment that you're flooded, you literally cannot handle anything. You can't create any positive outcome. You won't be able to have a productive conversation. You won't be able to fix things. You won't be able to connect. Nothing good is going to come from that state. And the only thing that you can do when you're in that state beyond your capacity is to get out and get more capacity, to regulate yourself. And it seems so obvious now that I know that, but even a year ago, I was still fighting it out. I'm hoping that this back and forth would yield some positive result. And now I see and know that that is absolutely not possible. So, yeah, I just agree so wholeheartedly with this point. And the magical other option is that you can remove yourself, regulate, come back into a state of well-being in yourself, and then actually have a connected conversation that's productive, that addresses the issue.
So well put. I love how you open that up. I think that, once you've paused yourself and removed yourself, that's when you go back to the other videos that we have, shared with you in this mini course. That's when you do the physical, exercise or connect with beauty or eat some beans or, you can do any of those other things once you've removed yourself. I have an analogy I would like to share about this explosive moment. It's a little bit like being in the middle of a fire, like a forest fire. Can you imagine a forest fire for a moment as an example of being in this outburst? Shoot, all the preventative stuff didn't work, and here you are, you're in the middle of one of these, for me, it was like rageful, angry episodes. Wow, we're in the middle of a forest fire. What's something that firefighters do as quickly as they can when they're fighting a forest fire? They create something called a fire break. They dig trenches around the fire or try to interrupt the path of the fire, just like we're saying here, to interrupt and remove something from the path of the fire. So I thought that was very effective to think about. It's, I'm creating a forest fire. I need a fire break. I need to dig these trenches. Okay. And then you can create keywords for yourself within your partnership. Like for me, I'm like, I need a pause. And my husband knows, or we learned that pause, it's kind of like a safe word. Pause. I'll be back in half an hour. Okay? So that's how you can do it. Or you can say, pause, I need to stop. I'll let you know when I can be back. Okay? It can actually feel really hard to even say those tiny words. So I'd love for you to practice in this moment. Just say, pause. Open your mouth as you're watching and just say, I need a pause. Can we say that together? I need a pause. Okay, that's awesome. Practice moving your mouth around those words now so that when you're in the middle of the forest fire, you can remember. You can start to embody and remember. I need a pause. Okay, awesome. All right, well, so that's a little bit of the discussion we wanted to share about what to do when you're in the middle of an outburst. It's very simple. Obviously, you're going to try it. We hope you'll try it. It's going to take a while for you to get used to, just like building muscles to make it work. Enlist your relationship in helping you. You can tell them that you're going to try and pause. And if you say pause, please support you. Okay? But what happens if you forget? Like, what happens if you forget to pause? What happens if the fire is raging and your mind is completely not present? You can't, you don't, you have those moments where for me it's like, oh shit, I did not pause. I should have paused. Oh my gosh, it's been an hour. Oh, it's been a whole evening. Oh, crap. I'm supposed to pause. Right? How many of you could relate to that? What do you do in that moment, right? Well, guess what? You remembered now, right? Whatever moment of consciousness appears, no matter when, it doesn't matter. That's when you say, gotta pause. Does that make sense? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. I remembered one last thing I wanted to add here, and that is just a very, very quick exercise. And that is, in this moment, try to bring up that feeling of a forest fire, that outburst. Just to a level 3 out of 10, maybe. Not too intense, right? But just that I can remember a time when I was really in the middle of an outburst. Okay. And now I'll demonstrate. I need to remove myself. In that moment, in the energy of that moment, practice saying, pause, I need to remove myself, whatever it is. So it's basically a somatic exercise of calling up that intensity of the forest fire and practice saying it so that when you're in the middle of it, you remember.